Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jules and I am here to talk about the books that I read in May. I am going to do the same weekly wrap up method that I did in April. So you are going to see a new version of me at the end of each week, recapping the books I read, what I star rated them, and if they are mentioned in a blog or not. So the first book I picked up was Powerful. This is a novella to Powerless. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. I feel like this is a take it or leave it novella. Like, honestly, you don't really need to read it. So this is Peyton's friend Adina's story. Kind of gives a quick glimpse on how her and Peyton met, and then it just kind of follows Adina's journey in the town and her relationship with somebody else that she comes across, and then her going to the palace, and then just her perspective of what it was like when she was in the palace making the dresses for Peyton. I mean, it was kind of a little slow start, and then it did pick up, and I did enjoy it more once we got, once she got to the palace. So that is the only book for the past week and a half that I did not talk about in a vlog. The rest of these are all in my latest weekly reading vlog. The first one I talked about in it is The Obsession by Jessie Sutanto. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book I picked up was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Next book I picked up was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next book I picked up was Murder by Cheesecake by Rachel Ekstrom Courage. This was the buddy read for Mystery and Mayhem, and I gave this one 3 stars. The next book I picked up is She Left by Stacey Gray. I had a fantastic time with this one. Ended up giving this one 4 stars. And then the last book I picked up in that vlog is Butcher and Blackbird by Bren Weaver. Love, love, love this. I gave this one 5 stars. So besides the novella, I did mention all of those other books in a weekly reading vlog, and that will be the first one that is linked in the description below if you want more thoughts on any of those books. And I will be back next week with my recap of what I read. Hello, I am back to go over the books that I read in week 2 of May. I don't think I mentioned any of these in any of my vlogs because I didn't vlog for like a week. But I'll give a little recap of my thoughts on them. The first book I picked up was Wine Tastings Are Murder by Libby Klein. This is book 5, I think, in the Poppy McAllister series. The first one being Class Reunions Are Murder. A bunch of people are reading this one right now, and I'm loving it. This is one of my favorite cozy mystery series. It is so funny. I have given every book in the series 5 stars. Hands down, one of my favorites. So in this story, we've got Poppy and Aunt Jenny at their B&B, and they have some customers that are staying with them that are signed up to do like a wine tour with some other guests that are staying at other places, and a husband and wife are staying at their B&B, and then some of the other people are staying at other ones. And then out of the blue, the dad's kids come. It's a brother and a sister. They're adults. They end up popping in and saying, that they wanted to join them. It would be great on this vacation. And their dad's new wife is younger, so they think that basically she married him for his money. They end up on this wine tasting tour that Poppy ends up actually catering for it. So she happens to be over there, and someone dies. So then the police don't want any of the people that were at this wine tasting to be able to leave. They have to stay. And so they want them all in the same place. And so the detective that Poppy doesn't really get along with, that she went to high school with, says that she wants her help being nosy because, Poppy's really good at being nosy. And so she wants all of the people that were at this wine tasting thing to go stay at Poppy's B&B so that she can basically eavesdrop on them and see if she can find out some information and help crack the case. I loved it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. And then the second book that I picked up is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. I had a really good time with this. So in this one, there's like 2 different perspectives. The book starts off right off the bat with a girl coming out of the woods. She gets found by a police officer. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what her name is. And then a guy shows up at the police station saying he's looking for his missing daughter and says it's her. And then he provides all the documentation showing that that's his daughter. And then, they release her to him. And of course, how scary would that be? First of all, not to know who you are, but then to just be handed off to like some stranger who is supposed to be your father. Like, you don't know that. So we follow her as, she's with the dad And then the other perspective is a high school kid whose girlfriend has gone missing. And the whole town basically thinks that he did something to her. And he is telling everybody that he didn't do anything. He was the last person to see her. I mean, she's not been found. They don't know she's dead, but everybody is like presuming that she's dead. So his perspective is just basically like, why is everybody giving up on looking for her? Like at this point, people are looking for a body, not an actual missing person. And he's like, she's not dead. But of course he feels guilty because an altercation they had before, you know, she went missing. So yeah, it's really good. Both perspectives are really good. Everything does kind of come back around and like intertwine in a way, not that I thought it would. So it was kind of a different little bit of a twist on it, but I had a really good time with this one. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars. And the next book I picked up was Egg Drop Dead by Vivian Chin. I said I was going to DNF this series. I did. I sure did say I was going to DNF this series. But for Mystery and Mayhem, one of the victims was Gabby. And her book selection for people to read for extra points was Murder Lo Mein or any of the books in the series. So this is the next book that I was supposed to read in the series, which was actually the book I was supposed to read for May if I was going to continue it. And we got points for it being a read book. I got extra points. So if I read this book, I got like extra points for the victim's book. It was also one of the host's favorites and it was a read book. I was getting all the points. So I was like, let me pick this book up and see. I'm pleasantly surprised that I did enjoy this one, probably the best since the first book in the series. So this one kind of goes back to like one of the main characters in the first book that was accused of the murder in the first book. She actually is hosting a big party at her house and somebody dies. And Lana Lee is there with, you know, one of the guys that works at her store and they're catering the event. And nobody dies by her food, so that was good. But this one just had more of an intriguing story. You know, it was more exciting. There was not as many dinners happening because in the book before that, like they was always just sitting down and eating and everybody was bickering. So there wasn't as much bickering and I did enjoy this one more so than the rest of them. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. Then the last book I picked up was California Bear by Duane Swierczynski. And this was a pretty fun time. Like I picked this up, obviously it's red and it was on my list. So I got extra points for it being a red book. But this one, I didn't know how I was going to love that there was 4 perspectives in this book. One perspective is the killer. He is a man who was accused of murder and had been in prison for a while. He ends up getting exonerated. A detective helps him clear his name. And then the next perspective is his daughter, and she is called the girl detective. So the dad went away for a while, but like she's in high school and she is diagnosed with cancer. So she thinks she's going to be dying soon and she wants to, you know, try and figure out if her dad really did kill the person or not. And she's very good at like detective and finding out things and searching for answers. Then we have Jeannie, who is the husband of the cop that got the exonerated guy out. So in the guy's perspective that was exonerated, it's pretty much him and the detective in their POVs. It's just a lot of them. We get her perspective on the shadiness of her husband and his investigative work. They're going to work together because she's a genealogist and he's going to be a private investigator. So they think that they have a shot having a new business, if you will, of, you know, tracking people down. And then the last perspective is the bear, who is a prolific serial killer who disappeared and is resurfacing. So it's been many, many years later. And the ex-detective thinks he knows who this person is and basically wants to bust him. And then there's other people who do know who he is and they are wanting to do a tell-all documentary on him. And then some crazy stuff goes down. Anyway, all the perspectives interweave with each other. And there were some times that I was like chuckling in here. There was some crazy stuff happening. Anyway, I had a good time with it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So that is the recap of the books I read, and I will be back next week to let you know what I read then. Hello, I am back to share what I read this past week. All of these are mentioned in a vlog, so I'm not going to talk about them. I'm just going to give you my star ratings. So the first two are actually in a dedicated vlog. I read The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig, and I read Famous Last Words by Jillian McAllister. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, and I ended up giving this one 2 stars. So head to that vlog if you want more details on my thoughts on these books. And then the third book that I picked up was First to Die by James Patterson. This is also in my last reading vlog that I recently put out, and I had a good time with this one, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I am planning on continuing in this very long series. Okay, so my next update will be my final wrap up of everything for the month, so I will be back then. Hello, I am back to go over the books that I read for the last week of May. The first one I picked up was The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunsvold. I do talk about this in one of my vlogs. I also was on a book discussion with Keisha, so we did a live show, so you can find that on Keisha's channel, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next book I picked up was The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I already returned this to the library, so I don't have it, but I also talk about this in that same vlog, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And then the last book I picked up was an ARC. I pretty much have been reading it all month, but I finally finished it like the very last day of the month. And that was Kill Your Darlings by Peter Swanson. This book was just kind of okay. The story is told in reverse. So basically, you know the main thing that happens at the beginning of the book, and then it progressively goes backwards. So then the next chapter is like something that happens before that, and the next chapter is what happened before that and what happened before that. It didn't work for me. Like, that sounded like it would be interesting, but in the grand scheme of things, no. It just kept taking me out of the book. I didn't have a problem like knowing the main thing that happens, but I think I would have rather had the main thing happen and then we jump back to like the beginning and then go through the linear timeline. But it didn't do that, and it just didn't work for me. So I do have a detailed review of this on Goodreads, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So overall, for the month of May, I read a total of 17 books. I read 5,720 pages, and my average rating of those 17 books was 3.76. So I was looking, and it seems that my average rating is dropping as the year's going on. So January, my rating was 4.0. February, 4.07. March was 4.20. April was 3.97, and then May is 3.76. So I had a really fun time reading for both Escape the Readathon and Mystery and Mayhem this past month. So basically, didn't have any idea what I was going to read, was just picking up stuff to fit certain prompts. So I really enjoyed that. Overall, I had a really good reading month. So let me know in the comments below if you read any of these books. If you did, how you liked them. Did you have a good reading month in May? What was your favorite book that you read? Let me know all the things in the comments below. And until my next video, friends, be yourself, be awesome, be kind.